Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this important call on the Dallas amendments. We're really lucky to have some great people on with us today. Former Mayor Mike Rawlings and, of course, Councilmember Gay Willis. With that, I will turn it over to her. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, I really appreciate that, Tony, and I want to pass the ball very quickly to a former mayor, beloved, respected, and I'm so glad he's spending some time with us today. Mike Rawlings was, I think, the last two-term, 8-year mayor, and so over 50 years for the city of Dallas, served from beginning in 2011. So Mayor Rawlings has some strong feelings, as do I and many other leaders, around 3 of the amendments on your ballot. And so I'd like to turn this over to him to share more about, from his learned perspective, the impact these could make on our city.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Tony. I don't want to go into too much and make this too much of a classroom setting and legalese, but I think we need a little context so everybody understands this. I'll talk about the issues that we're facing, and then I will kind of talk about what the campaign has been doing, and everybody will be up to speed with everything. Every 10 years, the city charter asks the city council to review the charter. It's our constitution for our city. It creates the rules and the governance of how we approach things. We do it every 10 years. When I was mayor, we did it, and there wasn't anything really big on that. I think we gave people raises from $35,000 to $60,000. That was approved, and not much else was done. This year, there's a lot of things on the agenda. Most of them came from council, and they put them on the ballot so people can go through those items. There were 4 items that came via petitions. If you get enough signatures from citizens, which you basically get out in a high traffic area, ask them if they believe in one of the cases, more police, and they go, yes, sign here. And that's how you get these things on the agenda, on the ballot. And that's why we're here to talk. Each of us probably have different points of views on a lot of the items that are there. Everybody that I've met, okay, is unified that the last 3 items are very dangerous for the city of Dallas: S, T, and U. And S gives away our city and governmental immunity to allow people to sue the city and their employees and their government officials if they believe an ordinance is being broken. So whether it's it's an economic development deal, whether it's a code enforcement, whether it's EMT performance, if they believe an ordinance is being broken, you have standing to be able to bring a lawsuit, and legal fees get paid. As you can well imagine, that will create havoc and chaos at the city. Not only the plethora of litigation that's going to be in front of the city, but it's going to really freeze any city employee from making a decision on anything, because they know that if they don't dot an I or cross a T correctly, they could personally be sued and the city could be sued. No city in America has this. No state has given away this, and the federal government doesn't do that as well. These folks, these hero folks, they're calling them, want that to be an option so citizens can make City Hall more accountable. T, we have a city manager form of government. the T, if it's approved, will have the city manager be able to be fired or their compensation be changed based on a 1,400 person survey, a random survey. And you can imagine what will happen with that, because anybody that wants a city manager to do anything, the city manager is going to immediately look and say, how's that going to play in the marketplace? How's that going to play with the survey? Not even saying that any city manager that would have the make the decision to apply for the job is cuckoo. Okay, I'm not sure I'd apply for any job that 1,400 random surveys would determine whether I get fired or not. That's just not the way that we should be doing business, and I don't think it's against our representative form of government. Lastly, insists that the city hire 4,000 police officers immediately, and does it in a way that really doesn't take into account the challenges that we face. And you talk to chiefs of police on this, they say it's a very dangerous thing because we're hiring police officers as fast as we can. It's a very, very difficult job. As you can well imagine, it's not a job a lot of people want to take these days. And we've got to make sure that they've got an associate degree, they're physically fit, they have all the qualifications, and then we get them through a training program. The most we can do is really a couple of hundred a year. We're building a new facility in far southern Dallas, so that'll help us a little bit, but it's not the way you approach this for many, many reasons. That if you don't do it, that money's frozen. You can't spend it on other items. So we're going to have to cut budgets on other things. David Brown, who's a friend of mine, I worked with at Chief Brown, said it best after our July 7th tragedy here in the city. He says, we ask our police officers to do everything. We shouldn't allow their job is public safety, and they should be able to do that. We've got to make sure we have other resources to surround them to be able to do it, and those budgets would be cut. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. The amazing thing about this is that we are completely unanimous on this. All the living mayors, all the current city council members, every former city council member I can find are against these things. Any state government representative, senators and representatives, they all are against these things. The county elected officials are against these things. This is not the way you do it. And basically the belief is that we believe in representative government, not doing it the way California does it with plebiscites, where there are all these referendums in California that really dictates the law. And I think it's a better place to be when we need to work through our city council and mayor. There are folks that aren't happy necessarily with some of the performance of the city council or the mayor, okay? But there are ways to deal with that, and that's probably for a subject at another time. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because we're so united, we've been able to run a pretty good campaign. The fear is this, okay? The fear is not when everybody understands these things that the other side, the for side, is going to win this. The fear is that this, on the surface, sounds pretty fun, okay? That we get to dictate how many police officers. Everybody wants more police officers. Everybody wants more accountability at the city manager's office. And believe it or not, the item that people like the most is being able to sue the city, okay? Because they get mad at the city from time to time. And to have that right feels American. And but when you start to understand the implications of these things, that's when this thing falls apart and it becomes a Trojan horse that blows up City Hall. So because of the risk of this, that's why everybody's gotten in place. We've had press conference, we've had one op-ed written. The Dallas Morning News is against this as well, their editorial staff. We have another op-ed coming out. We have dropped 2 mailers now. Gay told me she just got her second mailer, and we're planning on 2 more. We'll have another big announcement on Monday. We will have that I think will really shake the city when they hear that. And
In a good way.
what's that?
In a good way.
In a good way, yeah, yeah. We'll have good press after this. We've got a website that says Vote No Dallas that folks have been doing. I mean, everything that's been done pretty much has been gratis. People are doing this for free. We've got paid issues, obviously, that we have to pay. We've been raising a lot of money. The money's come from all over the place. We're all united now as entities that were behind this as well. Tom Leppert had a forum with the HERO folks last night at the regional chamber. And I was told after that, the executive committee approved voting, advocating against these as well. So everybody is aligned. Finally, it took a while to get get them on board, but we're all there. So the issue is not, is this city conflicted? The issue is, can voters be tricked that this could be damaging? And after I saw the research, on the surface, some of these things look very appetizing, and that's why I'm back in. That's why Gay's doing what she's doing, and people all across the city are. Thank you for your time. I'll be able to answer any questions if anybody's got them.
Mayor, I'd like to thank you for your leadership on this, because I know you're leaving, and I'm going to thank Gay as well, but I really appreciate your leadership. You know, with the election, everything's going, and there's so much going on. And I know it's tough because even just buying ad space right now is at a premium. And I appreciate that everybody is doing this, you know, for free, but there are hard costs. But appreciate your leadership on this. And Gay, you mentioned something too that I read that you put, which I think is so important with the police piece. It's not just hiring and paying the police officer. You have to outfit them too. You've got to buy them weapons. You've got to buy them cars. So your cost isn't just this, it's this. And because you can't just, you know, and you don't buy officers on Amazon, right? So it's just, it's insane. It's insane. So I just, and we know it's going to and because we always know the arts are one of the first things that get hit. And so that's why, you know, I think it's important to get our arts community out there, and all the what is it, the Parks, Arts, and Library Ministry of, yes, Ministry of Happiness. So
the Ministry of Happiness, I not heard that one. That's good.
Oh my gosh, I thought that was a Lee Kleinman.
I had a friend of mine that wanted to be appointed. He wanted to be Minister of Vice and be sent to Vegas as my representative. So I like Ministry of Happiness better.
Well, and thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, there is actually a Ministry of Happiness call Sunday night at 6 o'clock to talk about the impact that this could have on parks, libraries, arts, honestly, and beyond. Other things you need a street to go drive yourself to a library or park or the arts, you know, what it does to code compliance, what it does to our homelessness response. And so the effect could be up to $175 million. And when you think about the fact that the Skillman Library was on the chopping block because it was $500,000, and now you're going to throw $30 million just for us to outfit fleet for officers on top of training, uniforms, firearms, etc. It's really could be devastating. And on top of this, an article dropped today and it's been making the rounds. I've known it was coming for a while, but the pieces are finally pulled together on who is truly behind these propositions. And it's really frightening. And so I put it in the chat. It's at texasobserver.org. And Steve Monticelli, a reporter, has done a tremendous investigation to put together some links that had been missing. If you have gotten those mailers, Crime Boss mailers, Keep Dallas Safe, and they quote the Dallas Express, he finally found the link that ties all that together. It is this one person, well-funded, extreme agenda, and this is intended to disrupt city government. And so beyond these just at face value, seeming okay, but as you peel back the layers of the onion, you really see what they could do. And then when you overlay this, that this is someone who's really on a mission to fool people and to disrupt city government.
This isn't well-meaning. This is very intentional. And
Mhm.
and we're not the only one. I think we're just like the first, because they're going to do it with school boards and they're going to do it with other cities.
You know what
Yeah.
I love about the position we're in, let me see, glass half full, half empty. Okay, half empty is I've been doing a bunch of stuff in the last 3 weeks I didn't plan to do. Okay, and you know, having to kind of fight this. It's just I'm mad that we're having to do this. As Chris said, we're all so busy and we got all this stuff and we have to do this. The good news is we have a chance to squash this and send a message to America that we're not going to put up with this terrorism the way that they've done it. And I don't care about the motives. Excuse me. I care about motives, but that's not the primary issue. What I care about is what it happens to the city. It's like a road up on a mountain, okay? That, you know, if you just stay on the road, you'll get up the mountain safely. But just if you turn the wheel just a little bit, you're going to fall off in a cliff. And the margin of error is like this, and that's why you have to get out and do this. And so it's imperative that we all not only make sure we are on the safe side of this and say no to these things, but maybe send a signal to crush this as well. So that's kind of my personal motivation in this as well. So.
Yeah, it will have, what happens here will have an effect across the country. So that's why you're seeing so many impassioned leaders wanting to educate everyone far and wide. So
Dallas is smart if they know all the facts. I'm feeling good about that. So sorry, I've got a 12:30 I got to run to, but you guys have always been a great organization, and thank you for making our city better. Appreciate it.
Mayor, thank you for your time today.
Thank
Have a
you.
Good to
good
see you.
one.
Thanks.
So there are, I believe, 18 other amendments here. So we can, if there are any other questions around ST&U, I put a couple of flyers in the chat. I also put that Texas Observer story in the chat. So the Vote No Dallas website.
I did have a question, but I think I'll find it in the links that you put in there. I was like, has this been on the back burner, or did this person just all of a sudden wake up and want to blow up Dallas?
Well, the article at Texas Observer will give you a lot of detail. So he's been at this for a few years. There have been some other, he creates nonprofits that sound great, and then they really have some subversive thought behind them. So Dallas Hero is about these propositions. There are others around education. There was one that was set up to mimic Black Lives Matter. If you saw in Highland Park a couple of years ago, they had a school board race that became very racial in nature about, hey, Highland Park parents, your kids' spots in college are being taken by minorities. I mean, wow, this is big stuff. And this was fabricated. I mean, it was all blown up, and I can't remember the name of that nonprofit. The article goes into all of this and ties it all together. And so, and just to back up, Mike touched on it, but there was a process here, and these STU amendments, and actually are as well, were put on the ballot by petition. And I used to think, wow, that's great. People can have a voice and get this on the ballot. But we also had a flip side, which was council and the mayor appointed a commission of residents from each of their districts. And there was a process that reviewed 127 amendments, so which were submitted by council members, by residents, by organizations, et cetera. And so over 10 months with lots of public input. I like the way John Wiley Price puts it. He said people got to cuss and discuss. And so there was a lot of, some failed at straw ballot and then were brought back in a different form and passed. And so these last four, R and then STU, just got kind of ramrodded onto the ballot. And I used to think, hey, that's okay. And now I'm thinking, you know what? They all need to be cussed and discussed. And there's a process for it, and it's very open to the public to get involved. We've got, your chamber here. We've got all these other chambers. There are ways to be heard and have things put forth. And so this has definitely been a learning experience for me on this, but it shows you how someone with an agenda and wealth can ramrod something onto a ballot and have it sound good. Mike didn't use his great line, but he calls them chocolate covered rat poison. And so, and that's about right. So, but that's a great question to see, how does this even happen? I've got people asking me, why would someone do this? And, I think we all still have good hearts and minds, but there are other people who don't have that, and they have the ability to affect something like this. I mean, it's on the ballot. So, that's how. Well, if you'd like, we can start at A and run through to Q. And if there's some that are more detailed and people want more information on, we can stop. And but if you want, I can just start into them, unless anybody came into this call with like a nagging feeling about one or the other.
No,
Okay.
I'm good with going through each. I had a question specifically about one of them, but I'll ask it when we get to it.
Okay. So I'll start with A, and this is about, you've probably heard about the police and fire pension fund and the employee pension fund at the city. The Proposition A is about changing the contribution levels that the city can make and that the employees can make into the pension fund, because the employee pension fund it's not 100% funded. It's at about 70% funding. And so that gap needs to be closed. And because of that, the city needs to be able to contribute more, and we may ask that the employees contribute more. And this just opens that up because it's outlined in the charter. Well, actually, it just has to be done by the voters to allow that to happen. So, that's a necessary step. And so that's why you're seeing it on your ballot, is the process dictates that it has to go before voters. And so when you look at it, it outlines what the percentage is. Employees currently pay 13.32% in contributions. The city pays 22.6%. And so this would increase what the city could pay up to across each of them. It removes a cap. So it gives us some flexibility on that so that we can meet the unfunded liability. On B, this has had a lot of controversy. This is on adding a preamble to the charter. So I've seen some groups that haven't supported it. I didn't know exactly how I felt about it, but I think I've arrived at, I'm supportive of it. And what it basically says is that part of the quote is, it declares the city to be an equitable democracy comprised of representatives that act to make the city fair, equitable, just, and safe for all residents. So I probably don't need to tell this particular audience how talking about being inclusive and fair just sets some people off. And so what this is more of a statement of philosophy. It doesn't affect the governance of the city per se. It's not a directive, but philosophically, do we want to be fair, equitable, just, and safe for all residents? Well, this representative thinks so. And so I don't see a problem with including that language at the head of this document. So I'm a 4 yes on B.
That was my question. Just because, yeah, that was the question I had. I just, reading it, it seems pretty benign. But I didn't know if there was if this was cracking the door into perhaps other language being added later and using this as
Yeah.
sort of leverage.
There always could be, but I mean, part of this, I think it may have a land acknowledgement, that there were indigenous people here. Okay, I mean, that hurts people's feelings, some people's feelings. I mean, the point I made at the Horseshoe was that when you go more and more, when you go to universities, especially, Virginia, in the South, when you go to art museums or you go to other museums or other places of interest in cities across the country, more and more you were seeing acknowledgement of, hey, University of Virginia, we acknowledge that this university and its beautiful buildings was built by slave labor. So, it's a plaque on a wall, hurts some people's feelings, I guess, but it's an acknowledgement. And so, yes, I'm sure it could be proposed to be more detailed in the future. I was for letting this go to the voters. So, wherever it falls, okay, but I don't have a problem with having this statement on at the head of our charter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, Proposition C, controversial because it increases council salaries. We make $60,000 a year. This would propose increasing to $90,000 a year. This hasn't been increased for 10 years when it was $37,500 to $60,000. The mayor goes from 80 to 110. I mean, I can tell you as a sitting council person, it's a 50-hour-a-week job. And although I do teach a class at Dallas College to help offset this salary decrease I had, and some others work a little bit to offset it, it makes it really hard to have another career. I think that the way the council used to run in the past, it probably was part-time. But with social media and with the number of town halls and other points of public engagement, you're pretty much on your job all the time. But it's not necessarily about sitting council people. It's also about who's running for office and who can run for office. It pretty much, at that level, if you don't have a partner income, it's going to be very difficult if you're a single parent, if you're a young professional. And so it really limits the scope of who can even run for this role. And that's my main issue, is that I would love to see some different levels of expertise in some different categories that you're probably not going to see unless someone's household is willing to make up a very big give. And I mean, my household is, but that was part of the deal. And so that's okay. But I would like to see the caliber of who is running for office be able to be increased. And right now, I think this is a big drawback to that. So I am supportive of Proposition C. D is, okay, this is another one that's had a lot of controversy. It is about removing the date of the election, the municipal election from the charter. Right now we have you elect your council and mayor in May. And it just shows that historically turnout in elections is higher in November. I guess people are more conditioned to November elections. It would not fall in a partisan election year, like this is a partisan election year, so you wouldn't have a council race fall in this particular year. So Proposition D was put forth to remove the election date, which we would still need the legislature to give permission to be able to move it. But once they did, it would trigger this to go on and move our elections to November. Because of the higher turnout, I'm supportive of it. I have one concern, which is if you end up in a runoff, that's going to put you in early November. So that's the one drawback I see, is that, if let's say you have more candidates running, and you end up in a runoff, all of a sudden you're looking at the second week in November to try to turn people back out in an election. And so that is a concern I have, but I will err on the side of greater public input and support Proposition D, but that may be one you all want to give consideration to. Proposition E is about term limits. And I don't know exactly where I am on this one. I've got to decide this weekend because I've promised everyone I'll release a list, but I have always said that an election is a term limit. I mean, if you don't want someone to come back into office, you can not vote for them. But it is true that incumbents enjoy name recognition, some fundraising advantages, et cetera, that could allow them to stay in office for longer. The way it is now for council members, it is, you can serve 4 2-year terms, so 8 years if you're reelected each time. You can lay out for a term of 2 years, and then you could come back and run again and be elected. And in fact, our Mayor Pro Tem, Tanel Atkins, representing Southern Dallas, District 8, he is in his 16th year of service. So, you know, I mean, that means his community has continued to reelect him. He's not in a super high turnout area. So, you know, a lot of that works to your advantage. I would say residents can have an advantage by having someone who really knows the ropes politically, who knows the staff, who knows city processes, can lobby to get certain things done for their district, perhaps better than someone who's coming in new. On the other hand, 16 years is a long time. And there may be other voices out there that, you know, setting a cap at 8 years will kind of force being able to consider others in a role. So, you know, I may be inclined to support that just because I do believe in infusing more people into the process. F is a technical one. You know, one thing that in looking at the charter, at least every 10 years, it gives you an opportunity to correct some just technical language or things that may be happening in practice but aren't codified in the charter. This one just says that a staff will be provided for the city secretary and the city auditor. Well, of course they have staff. So I believe that other offices that answer to council have staff, and it's outlined in the charter. These 2 positions didn't. And so that is just to clear up an activity that already occurs. Proposition G, I think, is very important, and I support this. It's about the redistricting commission. There are those in this last redistricting process and in years beforehand who might appoint someone who worked on their campaign to be involved in redistricting. Well, redistricting involves who comprises a district and who votes in that district. So you're going to have people who've worked on your campaign, working on the redistricting commission, you know, people, city lobbyists, council members' relatives, different people who have contracts with the city. Right now, they're allowed to serve on this commission. And so this would put some guardrails on those eligibility requirements, and I think take out some conflicts of interest, whether they are by the letter of the law not right, integrity-wise, they may not be right. So I support putting those guardrails up, and that's Proposition G on redistricting. And I'm just going through, so if anyone has any questions along the way, please, you know, I get Lisa, you're watching for hands going up or something because I can't see. Okay, H, this one has a lot of controversy too. This is about expanding certain boards and commissions to non-citizens. So and it's big commissions. These are some of our most important commissions: the Plan Commission, the Civil Service Board, the Park and Recreation Board, or the Redistricting Commission. So it would eliminate the requirement that they have to be registered to vote or be qualified tax-paying citizens. So there were a couple of stories as to why this got on the ballot. And you may recall, I think 3 years ago, I know when I first ran the election before I ran in 2021, this had been on the ballot and it failed. And so the stories that I heard that were compelling, that made me think, you know what, we need to get this before voters again, is that Jaime Resendez, my council member colleague from District 5, said that when he was 17 and wanted to join the Army, his parents, who were not legal citizens then, they had to sign a form that would allow him to serve prior to being 18 years old, to serve our country and to, you know, give his life for our country. And he said, I think my parents, having signed their son over to the U.S. Army, should be able to serve on the park board or plan commission or whatever if somebody wanted to appoint them to that. The other side was the chair of the Charter Review Commission, Representative Alan Vaught, who served in Afghanistan. And if you recall that when troops left Afghanistan, there were a lot of Afghanis that we tried to get out, and some did get out, a lot of interpreters who had been side by side with our military, translating and assisting them. And he had worked with 5 different translators. 2 were executed. And I think the other 3 may have come to the US. They are on a path to citizenship. They are not legal citizens right now. But he said they're fine people. And he said they are exactly the kinds of people with the integrity that we would want serving on boards and commissions. Yet they can't because of this. So in the discussions, I would have hoped that the proposition said that people who are on a legal pathway to citizenship could be qualified and that they wouldn't have to be a legal citizen. The body voted to expand it all the way to non-citizens and not being registered to vote. So I'm still struggling with this one. I'll be honest. Do you all have any thoughts one way or another? Does this strike you? Or I think the chambers have opposed it.
Yeah. I don't know about the chamber specifically, and I'm just speaking on a personal level. I think, yeah, this one is also perplexing just for the reasons that you and the references you just shared. Part of me is confident in the vetting process that this already has. But I also think there should be certain basic requirements. So just, I don't know, this isn't helping the situation. Just letting you know that I'm also perplexed about this one.
Well, it makes me feel better to know that it's also perplexing because
I would also say it's not like there's a lack of good people out there who are residents, who are taxpayers, and I think that is important because they will feel the pain of higher taxes. And I think there are also ways there are other ways that people can participate in the process. And I would encourage creating more of those to make sure those voices are heard. But I kind of think there needs to be a bare standard minimum. And again, if it was just like we couldn't find them, that'd be one thing. But there are so many people out there, and I think they ought to be who we turn to first.
Well, and that's a really good way to put it. I think also chambers of commerce can play an active role in connecting with council members to offer up qualified potential candidates for boards and commissions. Like in District 13, I have no shortage of, involved, educated, civically interested, professionally capable people. I mean, I've got a line around the block, and who would like to serve in some roles. On the other hand, I know there are some other districts where they don't necessarily have that, or maybe they don't have a channel to get to that council member. And so it puts more of an onus on them. I know that, I'm a junior league member, and they just started a program called Board Build, where they do board training to get their membership who are already civically interested and active with board skills. And Junior League is much more diverse now, and they have representatives from practically every zip code in Dallas. And so I have asked them to send to me and to our council members this list of trained volunteers from every zip code so that they don't have to work as hard, and they can find, at least they'll have one resource list. And I think it's great when chambers do that as well. So I think this is really shaping me to having some minimums. I know that I probably wouldn't ever do that, appoint someone that didn't meet these criteria, but others may need to. However, I think there could also be more outreach work to get good candidates and see who's out there. So thanks. I think this helped make my decision. This has been very helpful for you all.
And I might add that in a city this big, there can't be hundreds of millions of people that are non-citizens that want to volunteer to be on these boards. So, I wouldn't change a minimal entry into sitting on a board based on maybe 1 or 2 people. If there are even 1 or 2 people that are saying it's not fair, I need to be on this board.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're right. A lot of people who are undocumented, they usually are trying to stay below the radar. And so now, I also think there are ways, great point, Chris, about other ways to serve, maybe in the neighborhood and helping in the neighborhood, because we need that all day long. And in certain segments of the city, we really need more of that neighborhood activism. So I like that thought that there are other ways to be involved in serving the city.
And if they're not, we need to create more of those, or direct people towards the ones that are out there, because they may not know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, and I think this is another area where it's incumbent on the council member to cultivate that. So, okay, well, good learning, good cussing and discussing, not a lot of cussing, good discussing.
We have the LGBTQ Leadership Institute. And
Okay,
this is just a small portion of it for people who want to be more civically engaged.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
that's-
Business Council for the Arts has one as well, where they kind of work to groom board members for arts organizations and develop that out too. Now, some of those come with a high cost, so that does keep some people out. But that's another thing too. Can we find other organizations out there that might take that process as well and build out board members who could end up serving on commissions and things like that?
I would say that after inauguration in June, especially when you've got new council members, that's a great time to put that out. And that may be a council communication to just say, here are some different resources to look to for filling your board and commission members. So that could be good timing because
Yeah.
the election or sometime between May and the inauguration, the election and the inauguration, especially for the newbies, because that can be a lot to take on. And it's a great opportunity to bring in some different groups. I didn't realize you had the Leadership Institute. I'm really glad to know about that. Okay, Proposition I, this is, and I've changed my opinion on this, and you'll know why, expanding petition signature deadlines and reducing number of signatures needed to get something on the ballot. Now that I've seen how this can be, I don't want to call it abused because this is the law, so they just did what they were legally able to do. I'm not sure about removing that obstacle and making it easier for them. I now would hope to channel people through the public process and the Charter Review Commission and all of that public input and sharing that can go on. So I'm not supportive of this, although we wanted to go on and put it on the ballot. Anyway, I think we see now how it can be used for abusive purposes. J is about being able to replace a board or commission member before their term is up. They tend to serve 2-year terms. And if you have an issue with a board or commission member for whatever reason, it could be ethically or philosophically, hopefully you've ironed out your philosophy as a council member with them as before they are appointed. But sometimes there are differing opinions. Sometimes there are just a variety of reasons. But, and I don't know that this comes up really often. Most people are pretty happy with who they appoint to serve across all of these boards and commissions. But occasionally there are issues. And if you want to replace someone, you have to ask them to resign, which they do not have to do. And if they don't, then it goes to basically this tribunal at the Horseshoe and becomes a big public process. You may have seen that Councilmember Ridley did this in removing his redistricting commission member who had been appointed by his predecessor, who didn't get elected. And so he wanted that person gone and he wanted someone that he wanted in that seat. He asked her to resign. She said no. Next thing I know, we're having this, he said, she said at the Horseshoe. So in this case, it would allow the council member to retain control over that board or commission appointee. And if there were some issues, which this would have to be voted on by other members of the council. So it couldn't be, well, you got in a spat and you just get to remove them. You're going to have 8 votes to remove them. And I think most people feel like there's gravitas in appointing people into these roles. But if there's a significant reason why someone should not be serving, this makes it less of a big production to be able to make that move. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm supportive of this. But I've seen some change, like the North Dallas Chamber didn't support this. I don't know why. I mean, on some of these, I'm a little puzzled. So that's why it's good to go through these and evaluate them for yourself. But I can tell you, it would have been helpful to me with a particular situation. On L is my baby. This is to create an independent office of Inspector General. So we currently created an Inspector General 2 years ago to investigate fraud, waste, and abuse at City Hall. There are 15,000 employees. There are contractors. There is a $5 billion budget. We've got a $1.2 billion bond program. So as much as we'd love to think everything's running correctly, I promise there are things going wrong right now. And so the Inspector General has the ability to investigate these sorts of things through a whistleblower hotline or, whatever mechanism. He can also proactively investigate things. He cannot be an independent operator answering only to the city council because of this charter. It has to be set up that he would be independent and answer to the council. We only, out of those 15,000 employees, we only have 5. The city attorney, city auditor, city secretary, city manager, and municipal court judge, administrative judge. And so this would create another position. Now, what if a council member was the one being investigated? That can happen either through the Inspector General or through external counsel, but it would still be investigated. So it removes conflict of interest within the city attorney's office. Most top cities have an independent office of Inspector General. And so I wanted to see this through. It failed at the straw vote because people didn't really understand it. And over the summer, I took time to get letters from John Creuzot, the Inspector General of the state of Louisiana, council members from Baltimore, Commissioner Andy Summerman, who used to work in this capacity or in federal government and sees the value of it. And I put together enough of a persuasive package that flipped 9 votes over to putting this on the ballot. So I think we need it. I think we should have it. I think it speaks to business and chambers of commerce who may want to help our economic development and who want to have businesses relocate to Dallas to say we have a strong government. We have a strong mechanism for integrity in our government.
Gay, I have a quick question going back one on the removing appointees. Those are just commissions or boards where you are representing a district. It's not like the DART board or the Economic Development Corporation or something like that. These are where you are representing a district. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You have been council appointed and it's under the city, like DART, separate entity, So
Right.
yes, good clarification. On Proposition O, this is to align municipal judge appointments with city council terms. Right now it's staggered, it's out of alignment, and this is just to bring all term appointments together. So it's kind of a technical change. P is another one that I feel strongly about because it is if an employee wants to appeal a discharge, there is a hard cost associated with that. If they aren't heard by a panel and they want to be heard by a judge, I think it's a hard $200 cost. If you're an employee at the lower end of our pay scale, which we do pay the MIT living wage, but still, that's not a lot of money. This would allow this fee to be on a sliding scale. The city auditor had investigated this, and this was a recommendation by him, is that instead of having a hard cost to pay, that it be evaluated based on the employee's salary. And I thought that sounded fair and that there was a good investigation and reasoning for it. And so I was supportive of P. I know North Dallas Chamber was against it. They felt like it would bring all these frivolous appeals. You don't see that many who request a judge. And so there's just not much volume. So I just didn't think that was a good argument against. Q is a technical amendment with just lots of revisions to clear up technical language, et cetera. I don't even have the list of it all here. I think it's outlined on the ballot. I'm for it. Obviously, this was something that went through the commission and that was recommended, I think, by the city attorney, city departments. And so I'm for that. And then when we get to R, this is another one that's controversial. It's also it's a referendum proposition. This was a group called Ground Game Texas that got a petition to, put this on the ballot. And it is, it's enforcement of marijuana offenses at 4 ounces. relaxing that standard at 4 ounces of marijuana. Dallas already does this at 2 ounces of marijuana. So years ago, it was decided that that level would be considered personal use and you would be cited, marijuana confiscated and released. You're not going to be arrested, taken to jail. It takes a lot of time to book someone into jail. This isn't a violent crime. So Dallas relaxed it at the 2 ounces standard. 4 ounces is a lot more, to the point that DPD feels like if you are carrying that much around, that you're dealing. If you're at that level, you're probably dealing and selling. And if you're selling that, you're probably selling other kinds of drugs. And if you're selling other kinds of drugs, you probably have some firearms involved. I mean, they had done their research on this and they had said they just didn't want to basically create a new class of drug dealer. So I was against this because I want to listen to our law enforcement on this. And also given the fact that Dallas already has undertaken some social justice around this to be relaxing at the 2 ounces or less, I oppose having this level increase. So that's Proposition R. So that's another one that just got ramrodded on there. But while it would have harmful effects for sure, it wouldn't be of the magnitude of STMU. And these are at the bottom of the ballot. So don't give up. Tell your friends and your colleagues, go through all the way. And on STU, stupid is the mnemonic device. Definitely. I mean, I would love your support against those. So vote against. On the others, I'm going to be, putting out my list. I'll put my email in the chat if you want to send me a message if you're not on my newsletter list. I can't use city resources to advocate one way or the other. We can talk the facts, but we can't advocate one way or the other. So I'm on my personal laptop, I'm on personal Wi-Fi, and that's my personal email address. And so I can share unvarnished opinion.
Thank you. Thank you for running through all of those.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm going to have to run, but I have one quick question, Councilmember. Q, Proposition Q, you said that one, and I was referencing the Dallas Morning News recommendations as we were going through each of them, but
Yes.
Q is the multiple charter amendments that affect public notice of city actions. If you can just explain again real quick what that would do.
Okay, so again, this is technical amendments. It is, yeah, and we don't know. We think the Dallas Morning News didn't understand exactly enough about this. So this would align, it would make the charter align with city code or state law. So there are things on the books in city code or things in state law, maybe that have come up over the last 10 years, but our charter is not aligned with them. And so state law will always usurp or trump the charter. It brings those things into alignment. So I'm trying to say, like, trying to give some examples. I mean, it's about like candidate residency requirements. I mean, we're just trying to, Q brings a lot of those little housekeeping items in line with either city code or the state law.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's why we were all very perplexed at why the Dallas Morning News didn't support that. And we just didn't think maybe they had the right information or something.
Okay, thank you.
And was there a Proposition K that was on and then it got stricken?
Yes, 3 of them did, because council had voted to put some things on the ballot that could help clarify language that would help, I guess, offset to a degree if STNU passed. But the Texas Supreme Court, who enjoys political donations from the person in the article, didn't find it in our favor. Surprise, surprise. So they were removed. So thank you. Very wise catching the order of the alphabet. So yeah, K, M, and N were removed. There you go.
Wow.
Well,
Thank you.
I appreciate you all doing this, and I'm so glad you're on that mailer. One thing I had told Scott in talking about all of this and before that initial press conference was that I really have wanted to, as everyone looks at the Dallas Regional Chamber and the North Dallas Chamber, and they'll talk about the Black Chamber and the Hispanic Chamber and all that. And I'm like, I always want to be sure LGBTQ chamber is part of that, the big voice. Part of that alliance. They've got Oak Cliff Chamber coming in now more. And I just feel like we've got a solid block of chambers that don't always align on everything, but represent some different views. And that I want to be sure that I see your chamber when people are considering who they need to bring into an issue, that you're always there.
Well, thank you. That means a lot, and we want to be there. So thanks. That's half the battle.